Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, part 2 of our router table cabinet build. Well, when we left last week's show, we had just finished gluing together the carcass of our router table cabinet. Since then, I filled all the nail holes with wood filler and given it a sanding all around. And at this point in time now, I think I want to make this thing mobile. Well, I have our carcass flipped onto its back, and what I want to do at this point is to add our casters. Now, you can do this step a little later if you like, but for me, having a small shop, I want this thing mobile as soon as I can get it. So all I'm going to do, I have some 4-inch casters. I have 2 that are fixed straight, and I have 2 that are rotating, and they're double locking, which means that when you lock them down, they stop rotating as well as spinning. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 4-inch by 5-inch block of 3/4 inch ply. I'm going to glue and nail it in place in our 4 corners, and then at the rear of our cabinet, I will attach our fixed wheels, and on the front of the cabinet, I will attach our rotating wheels. And with all 4 of our wheels mounted, we can now turn our attention to the front faces of all of our plywood. Essentially, what you're going to need is to mill a bunch of stock that is 3/4 inch thick and 3/4 inch wide. Well, the object here now is to edge all of our front faces of the plywood with some solid stock. I ended up choosing poplar. So all I'm going to do is carefully cut these to length, and then we are going to glue and brad nail them right to the front of our carcass. And we will do that for all of our front faces. But we will be sure to do the long uprights first. And with both our longer uprights installed, I'm now going to do these 2 cross pieces right here. So just take careful measurements, measure to length, fit them in, and glue and nail them in place. We're now going to do this bottom piece of trim right along here. This one's a little different in that it is 3/4 inch thick. However, we need it to come down far enough, almost like a toe kick, and we're going to bring it just below our blocks that we mounted our wheels on. And for me, that measurement ends up to be 1 9/16 inch wide. So I'm going to get this piece cut, glued, and nailed in place. And at this point now, we can finish off with these 2 uprights and the spaces here in between our drawers. I don't think we need another video of it. It's just cutting them to size, and just like you've seen me do, gluing them and then nailing them into place. Now for this section here on the right of our router cabinet, where we're going to have a large cupboard door, I need a piece of ply right here, and that's going to house or have our speed control bolted onto it. This is specific for the JessEm, the way that I want to do it here, so it may not apply to your build. But what I'm going to do is cut a piece. We're going to have it 2.5 inches wide, 6 inches long, and we're going to place it and brace it in place here, right in this section, level with the top of our table. And that would be all of the trim mounted on the front of our router table cabinet. So before I go much further, I'm going to fill all these holes with wood filler, and then I think what I really need to do before I carry on much further is look into mounting our router tabletop. And after quite a bit of finagling, I have the router top on my cabinet. Now you may be wondering, why didn't I film more of it other than just showing you the end result? Honestly, it's because the measurements that I took pertain to this exact setup. Giving you the measurements for this and showing you the modifications that I had to make to this cabinet in order to make this work would do nothing for you. So you would have to figure it out on your own. I did have to do some certain modifications, including drilling out L brackets to be able to screw into the phenolite top and be able to mount on the inside. I used existing mounting holes because I don't like drilling into the phenolite. So it also involved, let me just spin this around, being able to get this raising and lowering mechanism installed. And I gotta tell you, this is a super tight fit. To get this to fit in the cabinet and have everything centered and right took a lot of customization, but I got it. It looks great. I love the way it works. I love the way it looks. I've even dressed the cables all up underneath the edge here using cable mounts for tie wraps or cable ties. As well, my height gauge of the bit, this ended up getting a whole new mount at the back. I could not use the factory mount anymore because the cabinet extends too far out. I just want to show you guys how tightly this is measured and how tightly this is figured. If you look on the left-hand side here, you can see the dust collection. Look how tight it is to the wall here, as well as how tight it is here for the raising mechanism. There isn't much room to play around here. So you really need to measure carefully. As well, the shaft for the raising and lowering mechanism has to go right through the cupboard in my cabinet. There is no two ways about it. And just to show you how tight it is that the brackets for the raising mechanism are, there really isn't that much room here for error. So as I said, measure carefully. So now I want to get the dust collection hooked up onto this unit. And what we'll start off with is some 4-inch dust collection hose. Well, the JessEm's dust collection system is way back here at the back, and it's awkward to attach at the best of times, let alone when it's inside a cabinet like this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to extend our 4-inch dust collection hose out the back of our cabinet. So I have a couple of dust collection flanges. I'm going to mount one inside and one outside, and that will become our new dust collection port. It's a pretty simple concept, but I think it'll work really well for this application. And now with both of our flanges installed, both inside and out, we just need to connect the other side of the hose on the interior, and we will have effectively extended our dust collection out the back. Well, it's now time to focus on our router bit trays. So I have one of our plywood trays here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the 1/2 inch that will signify runners that are in the cabinet. That way there is no confusing what is usable space of the tray. So between these lines is the usable space. And from here, I will just divide this line, this space here, exactly in half to give us our center line. Space between our center line and the edge of our plywood runners, we want another line centered on here, and that will be our 3 rows of router bits. And now, starting at the front of the tray, we will mark a line at 1 inch in, and this will be our first row of bits, right here, 3 bits. From there, all the way along, just on one line, I will place a mark every 1 7/8 of an inch. And then using a square, we will just duplicate those marks across our center 3 lines. Now this tray will be for bits with a 1/2 inch shank. So at each one of these intersecting points here, I'm going to drill a 1/2 inch diameter Forstner hole that is 5/8 of an inch deep. And there we have 3 of our 4 trays all drilled and ready to go. The only thing that's left to do with these is we will remove our pencil lines and give them all a good sanding. Then we can move on to drilling the 4th tray. Well, most of my bits are 1/2 inch shank, and that's what I've set up my router bit trays to accommodate. But I do have a selection of 1/4 inch bits. So for the 4th tray, I've done our same 3 lines across the length of our tray, but at the front, I've done the first 30 holes at 1 inch apart. These will house my 1/4 inch shank bits. And then the rest, I've just measured 1 7/8, and we'll fill it up with more 1/2 inch. But 30 1/4 inch holes here now, the same depth at 5/8 of an inch deep, and then we'll do the rest in 1/2 inch diameter holes, and that should house all my 1/4 inch bits and whatever strays of my 1/2 inch I might have. So it's now time to work on the drawer faces or the tray faces of our router bit trays. And I have 4 pieces of 3/4 inch poplar here, and they are all 6 inches long, but we have 2 that are 3 3/4 inches wide and 2 that are 3 3/8 inches wide. But we have just a little bit of layout to do on these, and let me show you what I have in mind. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to put a center line from top to bottom, just like that. And on my old router table, I had handles that I could pull these trays out, but on this one, I think that I would like to have some finger pull notches. So for that, what I'm going to do is I've got an 1 1/4 inch circle. I'm going to center it right at the top of our router bit tray here, just like that. And this will be cut out for a pull to open our drawers. So now the section between here and here, what I want for this is some card labels, because I would like to have the drawers labeled as for what's in them. So I'm just going to divide this section here exactly in half, and once I get that mark on there, we can mark for our holes that will accept our card holders. Just like that, and we'll just verify that that is the right measurement. Yeah, looks good to me. So I will put these markings on all 4 of our tray faces, and then we're going to take this over to the scroll saw and cut it out. And once I get this cut out, I'll come back and see you. So to finish this off, I've drilled our holes that will accept our card holders, and as well in the finger pulls I have routed a 1/4 inch roundover. But now it's time to attach our router trays to our router fronts, and for that I'm going to use some simple pocket hole joinery and glue. You just want to be careful when you're drilling these out that you don't drill your pocket holes in where your router bit holes are. So keep those pocket holes within this area right here. And if you've been following along, you should have something that looks like this. And each tray, of course, can be pulled out to have all of your router bits. Now, these index card holders here are completely optional, as are these finger pulls. I think though, after reaching in to open a few of these, we do have quite a sharp edge along the front here. And I think on each one of these, I'm just going to give it a light sanding just to take that sharp edge off, because I can see my knuckles getting chipped up pretty good with those over time. So now that those are done, I'm going to move on to our 4 drawers in the base of our router table. Well, our drawer construction is going to be just simple finger joints, finger jointed boxes that are going to have a solid wood front. So we need to take careful measurements now of the width, the height, and the depth of each of our openings, and we're going to make a finger jointed box out of 1/2 inch ply that will serve as the drawer. You want to make sure that you only measure up to where your solid wood facing meets up with your plywood here when it comes to the depth of your drawer, because you need to add room, or leave room rather, for our solid wood face. Well, I've got all the pieces cut for all 4 of my drawers, the 2 top smaller ones and the 2 bottom larger ones. So now I'm just going to take it over to the table saw. We're going to set up our finger jointing jig and finger joint all of these drawers to get them put together as our box. There's more to go on it, but we'll get to that afterwards. Guys, I'm not going to get into the setup and the procedure for cutting these finger joints. I have a tutorial on the show for this if you want to see it. I'll try to remember to post a link below. If you don't see that link in the description, feel free to remind me. I'd be more than happy to put it there for you. And with all of our finger jointing done, these are basically the outside carcasses for our drawers. The next step would be to make the bottom, but unfortunately that's all the time we have for this week's show, guys. There's still a little bit more to go on this, at least enough for one more episode, and we should be able to finish it all up next week. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I hope you've enjoyed the content so far, guys. As I said, there's quite a bit more to go on this, but we're in the home stretch now, and it shouldn't take us much longer to finish it. I hope you're going to try this yourself, guys, and more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.